The morning began with the kind of silence that didn't belong to a neighborhood full of life. It was the unsettling, breath-stopping kind of quiet that descends right after tragedy, when the world seems to pause and ask what went wrong. The sun was still pulling itself above the line of houses when neighbors gathered near the ambulance that blocked the narrow suburban street. And there, half-covered beneath a pale blue sheet at the edge of his own doorway, lay the lifeless body of Rowan Hale, the quiet, exhausted single father everyone saw but never truly knew. His home, once a faded two-story house weathered by years of grief and responsibility, now stood like a witness to something unspeakable. People whispered. Some cried. Some stared with wide eyes as if trying to rewrite reality in their minds. And above all the noise, 3 girls stood frozen on the porch, trembling and pale, as though the ground beneath them had been cut away. Sparkles, if viewers of Ripple of Love believe in hope, compassion, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support brings these emotional stories to life. Rowan had never been a man who voiced his pain. Everyone knew he had lost his wife 3 years ago, but no one truly understood what it cost him. He had raised his 8-year-old daughter, Myra, alone, working construction by day, taking night shifts when necessary, aging faster than a man his age should. His body was tired, his eyes permanently rimmed with exhaustion. Yet there was something tender in the way he looked at his daughter, as if she were the last warm ember in a world that had gone cold. But lately, those embers had flickered dimly. Myra had begun withdrawing, her little shoulders carrying burdens too heavy for a child. Rowan had noticed but didn't know how to reach her without breaking further inside himself. A week before the tragedy, something unexpected happened that no one in the neighborhood had seen coming. A white van pulled up to Rowan's home. 3 girls stepped out, older teenagers, maybe 19 or 20, each of them carrying a single duffel bag. They looked painfully out of place, like fragile birds caught in a storm. Their names were Lyra, Callan, and Suri. All 3 were foster sisters who had aged out of the system, thrown into adulthood without safety, home, or family. They had come under a government placement program that paired young adults in need of housing with families who had spare rooms. It wasn't perfect, and it didn't always end well, but Rowan had signed up, quietly, without telling anyone, hoping maybe filling the empty rooms would somehow fill the emptiness inside himself too. The girls arrived at midday, sunlight washing over the house as they cautiously stepped inside, their battered bags brushing against the chipped wooden doorframe. The air smelled faintly of cedar and old memories. Lyra, the soft-spoken one with storm-gray eyes, carried the weight of abandonment in every step she took. Callan, tall and tense, scanned every corner as though expecting danger to leap out at her, her past filled with too many nights she had learned not to trust peace. Suri, the youngest, had a shy smile but flinched at sudden sounds, her trauma hidden beneath quiet resilience. Rowan greeted them awkwardly, his voice uncertain, his posture stiff with the anxiety of someone who feared he might fail them before he even began. Myra had peeked from behind the stair rail, her dark hair falling across her face as she stared at the 3 strangers who would now share her home. At first, the house felt mismatched, a puzzle made of pieces from different boxes. Daylight spilled through dusty curtains, illuminating the awkwardness between them. The girls kept to themselves, unsure of boundaries. Rowan tried his best to help but seemed overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility. Myra avoided everyone, hiding behind her bedroom door whenever footsteps approached the hallway. But something subtle began to shift. Lyra started leaving small notes of encouragement for Myra on the kitchen table. Callan helped Rowan repair a broken cupboard, noticing the way his hands trembled with exhaustion. Suri read stories to Myra in the afternoons when sunlight slanted through the living room windows like warm ribbons of hope. Slowly, cautiously, threads began to weave between them, threads fragile but real. The neighborhood watched with mixed opinions. Some whispered judgments, wondering why a single man would take in 3 young women he didn't know. Others admired his courage. Rowan ignored all of it, focused only on keeping his home afloat. But stress clung to him like a shadow. Bills piled up. Work hours increased. His body grew more tired. And something deeper was happening, something no one saw. His heart was failing. Quietly. Silently. He brushed off the dizziness, the chest tightness, the breathless nights. He had lived too long carrying pain. He simply learned to endure it without complaint. Then came the morning when everything collapsed. He was preparing breakfast, hands trembling slightly as he buttered toast for Myra. Sunlight streamed across the kitchen floor in warm golden beams. The girls were upstairs getting ready for the day. Myra was sitting at the table tracing circles with her finger. Rowan smiled at her, a soft, weary smile that looked like a goodbye he never meant to give. And then, without warning, the plate slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. His knees buckled. His body crumpled beside the doorway. Myra screamed. Lyra, Callan, and Suri raced down the stairs, their footsteps echoing like thunder through the house. But by the time the ambulance arrived, the world had already lost Rowan Hale. The girls were questioned endlessly. Neighbors stared. Rumors spread like wildfire. But amid the chaos, something unexpected and quietly profound began taking shape. The three foster sisters refused to let Myra be taken away by the system. They stood by her side like guardians forged from shared pain and newfound loyalty. They spoke of the gentle man who had opened his home to them without asking for anything in return. They described how he had become, in such a short time, the closest thing to family they had ever known. Their words softened hearts. Their grief moved people. And gradually, the neighborhood began to see the beauty in what Rowan had begun building before fate took him away. The court considered placing Myra with a distant relative she barely knew, but the girls fought tirelessly, refusing to let her life fracture again. They showed letters Rowan had written, documents he had quietly prepared, expressing his hope that the girls would become permanent residents and that Myra would grow with them, forming a chosen family he believed could heal together. His handwriting trembled across the pages, full of hope and fear, as though he knew time was not on his side. The judge listened. The social worker cried. And for the first time, the girls felt the possibility of a future that wasn't shaped by loss. Weeks later, Rowan's house was no longer a place of sorrow but a place of gentle recovery. Lyra planted flowers in the sunlit yard. Callan repainted the living room, filling the space with warm earthy colors. Suri helped Myra with school projects, encouraging her to smile again. Little by little, a new family took shape in the very home that had witnessed tragedy. The sun rose each morning on four girls who were learning, day by day, that healing was not found in forgetting but in holding on to the love left behind. Sparkles, if this story touches your heart, please support it with a like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps more emotional stories reach others who need them. Before the final moment of the story, the narrator gently asks viewers to share their thoughts. Please comment your feelings about this journey of loss, hope, and found family. And in the end, as soft afternoon light filters through the windows that once saw Rowan's last breath, Myra stands beside her new sisters in the yard, watching the flowers Lyra planted sway gently in the breeze. She feels the warmth of their hands in hers, a warmth she feared she would never feel again. Life had been cruel, unpredictable, and deeply unfair. But in the quiet aftermath of tragedy, something miraculous had taken root. Love, unexpected, unconventional, and unbreakable, had grown from the very place where pain once lived. The house no longer carried the weight of a loss but the promise of a new beginning. And as the four girls walked back inside, leaving the garden bathed in sunlight, the world seemed to whisper that even the deepest wounds can bloom into something beautiful when held together by the right people.